Howdy, howdy, howdy. It's Friday. There we go. Happy Friday, everyone. We got Ray and Hubert here. Let me it all. How's everyone doing today? Hey, Hubert, Ray. Happy Friday. Uh-oh. That's not good. There we go. How are we doing today? See anyone here in the chat? Not yet. Yeah, and I just muted you just because we can hear the coughing and background noise. But if you have a question, unmute yourself. How's everyone doing? Who's got something to share? So, by the way, we're having a big sale, Black Friday sale. 40% off anything and everything we offer, which is you can go to the URL over my head there and get the special discount code to use at checkout. Isaiah should be here. I thought he's got some family over, but he said he'd be on the call, so he should be here in a minute. I hope everyone's doing well. We had a great Thanksgiving yesterday. Yeah, really good, really filling, and no drama. Crazy. Yeah. Let's see what else. No one here has any questions so far. I could try to think of something to show that we've been working on. What have we been working on? We had actually a client had a real fire emergency, so Aziz and I actually worked most of the day yesterday. Unfortunately, it's confidential, so we can't be sharing that, but it was an interesting problem to be working on. And yeah, does anyone here have something they want to share, something they want to ask about? I mean, this is the Friday live call, which is, I feel a little more like I just sit here and I answer questions, not show stuff. We did release that video of the day on using Excel with the editable cells, which was very interesting to me because Excel is a very powerful editor, tool to be able to work in. So it's great to be able to show it. Aziz has to finish being able to how to display it inside a GUI. He's like, it's easy to map it to where the things will move around with your GUI, so it's faking it kind of, but he wants to embed it in the GUI. And maybe, actually I didn't ask him, but we'll probably use WebView 2 or something to do that as well. Be fine. But yeah. Let's see anyone here. So does anyone here have any questions, anything they're working on, anything they want to share? Talk about your Thanksgiving day, if nothing else. I've been reading some really interesting books on communities, and Aziz and I were reviewing tools that are kind of like Facebook in the sense they create a community where you can have memberships and have people go in, but it's much more personal than like the forum, right? The forum's great overall at posting your questions and showing your code, but it doesn't as much give you kinship with the other people, and that's what I think in communities they can provide that. So we're looking at a couple of solutions out there. Maybe next year we'll jump into that. If anyone has any thoughts on that, if they be, if they think that would be cool or not. I mean, I know in our hero groups, we have a lot of fun talking with each other and learning from each other. And that's kind of what is part of the reason why I'm focused on that. Ooh. This is the first Friday where it's been that quiet. Oh, I see Jekko, who just joined the hero group this morning. Thank you for joining. Yeah, honestly, Jekko, I mean, I know just from being on a lot of calls talking about it, but I haven't programmed in it myself. Yeah, Isaias he's I'd say an expert in it already. Jekko, to answer your first question there about should you port them all to V2, not necessarily, right? There's absolutely no reason to think in your head, oh, I'm going to switch to V2 and I'm going to get rid of V1. They can definitely have, I do have V2 installed, right? And I just have mine being launched and running with V1, but there's no reason to think you have to switch everything. Now, I would say, hey, if you only had 100 scripts, because I have thousands, right? If you had 100 scripts, you might consider doing it, and that way everything gets switched to V2, and then you're good to go for almost ever, right? For quite a while, because V2 is going to be around for quite a while. But no, you can definitely have them both and not have to worry about that. Let's see Jonathan here in the chat. Wonder where Isaias is. Oops. Well, sorry, Jonathan. It's weird. Why did? Oh, because it's H. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen someone spell Jonathan with the John out in front. Anyway, cool. You bet. Yeah, V2. Here's the other thing to know about V2. It's more strict. So if you're not a programmer, it's gonna feel like a little more work, right? It's a little more strict in how you do stuff. It does. If you're a programmer, I think you're gonna love it, right? Because that's what the big complaint about V1 is, that it's too loosey-goosey. It's too flexible, and it causes sometimes some weird issues. In V2, they lock down some of the stuff. There's also no incredible performance gains from V2, so there's no real reason as far as performance-wise to switch. It's more about you writing your code a little bit more stricter, and you do have some cool and interesting new things. However, they're backporting a lot of the stuff. I know Gzwig, I see his emails and notifications in GitHub. From V2, he's backporting stuff to V1. And so some of the big reasons why I'd say you should go with V2, when he ports it back to V1, I'm like, well, it's actually getting put into V1, so kind of negates that. But the other thing is, if you work in GUIs, holy cow, GUIs are so much easier and simpler to me. And what you say in objects and classes, they're so much easier to understand. So I would definitely, if you're working a lot in GUIs, V2 is really much more direct and straightforward than V1. But yeah, it's I haven't made the switch personally yet. I've been on a lot of calls with both Isaias and Dimitri Gertz, who programs a lot of it. And then I know in HK All the Way, he has a channel, right, and it's all V2, and he's on the stream sometimes, but he does everything in V2, and I watch almost all of his videos. And again, it's not hard to pick up. It's just needing to know a couple things, and then when you're dealing with objects like in a for loop, you have to understand that there's the way that V1 did them isn't the normal way compared to other programming languages. So V2 is much closer to it. You have a map, and so then you can do different things with it, but your for loops will be different. Well, yeah, Jekko. I mean, you can still go to the website right now and see the vanilla version, the one that predecessors the V1, it's still, you know, like V01. No, it's 1, but it's the 1.0, the vanilla version, and it's still there. So I mean, although maybe it does say deprecated, I don't remember if it does, but it's going to be around for quite a while, right? Quite a now. Lexicos isn't updating it. He'll patch bugs, you know, when someone alerts him to bugs, but he's not going around and doing stuff with it. And more and more, like there are some libraries that are just V1, but more and more, and actually I didn't watch the video yet, but I saw H Called Away had a video on, I think it said something like some interesting libraries available in V2, and there's some really cool stuff that is available in V2 that's not available in V1. And so, and here's the thing with that announcement just the other day that now V2 is out of beta, and Lexico said this year he's planning to release it. Now, Isaias was saying once it's released, it's going to be the official version. I don't know if that's a certainty. Maybe it is. But regardless, it's coming sooner than we expected, at least. We weren't expecting it for a while, probably mid next year. But all of a sudden, we were like, wow, this has caught us off guard a bit. We're excited. I was actually thinking I'm going to have to see. The problem also is the only real editor that's doing a decent job in it is VS Code for V2. There's a couple other ones where you can do some stuff with it, but really the only one that's really, I'd say that's really something you should use is VS Code. And I'm still using Studio and VS Code. It's an amazing editor, don't get me wrong. It's kind of like bringing a Ferrari when you're perfectly fine with your Toyota and you like the Toyota. Why would I go into something that's more complicated and it is more powerful and does more stuff and works in a lot of languages and does amazing stuff with GitHub, but I don't do stuff in Git, and I don't need more advanced stuff, and so I just haven't made the switch. But apparently I'm going to have to pretty soon here, or as Aya said, he could update Studio to V2. He said it wouldn't take him that long, but I know I asked Maestrieth and he said he wasn't interested in converting it to V2, getting it to, because it's not really that hard. You're just swapping out the IntelliSense, the variables. You would have to change a little bit of the logic, but and then being able to select like Isaias does in his HK toolkit to select from a list to which one you want to use. Be working in. Oh, I see some chats here. Sorry, it wasn't showing. Responding to your for email. I heard. I don't know what you're referring to, Ray, but okay. I see something about a big time project. How do I know if you're using V2? Chances are you're not. How's that? You can double click any running script. Let me share my desktop. Let me see. Actually, I'll just share that desktop. Yeah, that'll be fine. Let me share this one. This is one of those things a lot of people just don't know, and it's a great thing to be aware of. So this is my system tray. I have mine, of course, at the side instead of down below. You can double click any script. Of course, I open my other monitor, but here I see this says v1.1.35, which is the one that was released very recently. It won't say that. It'll say V2, right? If you're running V2. And the other thing while we're here is for debug purposes and stuff, you can go to list lines most recently executed to see what was recently run. And then you can also go to this hotkeys and their methods. So you can see hotkeys that are available for that script and then variables and their contents. So yeah, so these are great ways to do a very quick check on your script that's running. But yeah, it's a really handy way to be able to look at your script, but also to check what version you're running in. So that's this really simple way to do that. Oh, let me go back to, this is why I prefer having Isaias here, because monitoring two different chats and trying to field questions and everything is a bit much. Yeah, let's see. Ray, PN, Hubert. Anyone else? Anyone else got a question? And Jekko, did you see you can join? You know what? Let me throw the URL here again. Let's see, yeah, if you wanted to join this Zoom call. So we have, so now, and sorry, like leading up to this call, I do a lot of emails, a lot of other stuff. That's why I didn't have time to reply to you this morning. But this call we do in Zoom, in a certain Zoom room, and then we live stream also here to YouTube. And then calls after this from my time, so in 45 minutes, which will be 10 o'clock, from 10 to noon, we have our hero calls, and that's what you got the email, which had a link in it to a Zoom room. That's the normal Zoom room for all of our hero meetings, including the one this afternoon. By the way, we're having a live discussion. I think there's 9 different approaches for web scraping and AutoHotkey that we've outlined and went across several different attributes. We're not teaching how to code in it. We're teaching which ones you should use and when, and why you'd prefer one over the other. Just discussing them from, at a high level. So we're not teaching programming, but we're going to be helping people understand what's available to them. And oh, here's Aziz. Good, I can stop babbling. But it should be a fun and interesting call. Now that call is going to be different because even though we're only letting hero people attend live and ask questions, we will later have it kind of like a replay and share it in YouTube later on. Just because we're not going to have any personal, information that our clients do. That's why we don't stream the YouTube stuff, the hero rooms, because hero people share what they're doing and what they're working on, and that's often privileged, right? So it's just with us.
Hi guys, I'm really sorry about the delay. Yeah, I
you had too much turkey yesterday.
Yeah, so happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody, right? Like we don't do that in here, so but yeah. How is everybody? Is anybody, having questions today that I could help with?
I see we actually just got a question in the chat here from ABB Minsour. Hey, I use AHK new in my work, and I have a problem that I use AHK in remote desktop and it's not working.
Okay, so when he says new, does he mean V2 at this point? Like
I don't know. Yeah,
or I would assume so.
Maybe is what he was trying to refer to.
Right. Now the question here, when he says that he's remoting into a machine, which one is the one that has the AutoHotkey? The host, like the main computer, or the virtual machine that you're connecting to? Because sometimes if you're in your host machine, you have a script, it might not send the correct information to the virtual machine. So it's always useful to have AutoHotkey in the machine that you want to run the code in.
Yeah, so let's back up a step. When you're using something like Citrix or remote desktop or something to connect to a computer, you're seeing the screen, right? Yeah. You may feel like you're doing stuff, but you're really seeing the screen. And so if you're using AutoHotkey on your computer and you're trying to automate the remote computer, you're very, very limited in that approach, in that you're usually looking for image search or something, right? Or locations or mouse clicks and stuff like that. However, if you can get AutoHotkey installed in that remote computer, suddenly, wow, your doors open up a lot, right? Because you can actually have the program running there. Now, here's the fun part, and Isaiah and I know this painfully well because we work in Zoom so much and other tools, is some hotkeys will not get passed through whatever tool you're using. And so you might, if you're trying to like let's say you're using Control T, maybe switch it to some other hotkey and see if it's the hotkey that's not getting passed through before you do too much work.
Actually, something that happens very often, and as you mentioned, Joe, that I remote to your computer and we're doing something on your computer. In your computer, we have a script that has Control F12 as a hotkey, right? But in my computer, I also have a hotkey that is Control F12. When I press it, my computer grabs the hotkey and doesn't send it to yours. So you have to keep in mind that let's
make it even funnier though, right? Because this has come up where we both have the same scripts with the same hotkeys
as well.
And yeah, but it's really funny because he's like, I'm hitting the hotkey and he sees the message box, but because we're sharing screens, he thinks that message box is on my computer.
Yes.
So he's like, why isn't this working? And then he's like, oh crap, that's
my computer, right? So whenever you're whenever you're dealing with this remote computer type of stuff, my recommendation is try to make your scripts on the remote computer. If you can install AutoHotkey in that computer, even better, because you want everything to work locally in that computer that you're automating. So if you're remote into it, don't have the script on your computer and try to do stuff in the other computer. That's not impossible, but it's really tricky.
But that would be the first thing I would check into, is if you don't have AutoHotkey installed on that remote computer, because it's definitely possible. And it's one of the things a lot of people, we've been on calls where, like a call like this, and someone will ask a question about Citrix, your remote, whatever, and people are like, oh, you're never going to automate that. I'm like, wait a minute, because if you can get AutoHotkey installed in that computer, Bob's your uncle, right? Like suddenly you can do so much more. It's just the problem is most of those remote computers, it's often like a server or a system that IT controls, and you might have to jump through some hoops to get it done. But like what I used to do at TI is I had a work computer. I had 2 work computers, actually. They'd both be on, and I could remote into them. And I had AutoHotkey, of course, installed on those, and so I could do a lot of stuff remotely, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Anybody else?
So yeah, he and Todd was correct, because Todd said maybe he meant now instead of new. So he says, I use AutoHotkey now in my work, and I have a problem. Yeah. Did ABD, did it make sense what we said? And also, can you clarify, since you're responding here, can you clarify, do you have AutoHotkey installed on that remote computer, or are you solely trying to use AutoHotkey on your computer and
automate the remote the other one? Yeah, because that's a tricky thing right there.
Yeah, you have to really change how you, well, it depends on your skill set. Like if you're really new to AutoHotkey, it probably doesn't change what you're doing a lot, because most people, when they start with AutoHotkey, they're sending keystrokes and doing image search, right? Okay, yeah. So again, that'll severely limit what you can do. So you will be usually restricted to looking for image search and stuff, but not always, but that's the vast majority thing. Now, you also might consider, depending on what you're trying to automate, if you're automating a browser on the remote computer, and that browser could have like auto control, an extension, a Chrome extension that is automatable, you could get that possibly. It's not such a red flag, is my point, as AutoHotkey is to most IT people, right? So you could do something like that. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add to that, or if anyone else has any other questions.
I guess you're spot on in what you said.
And Ray, I see in your Zoom chat here, is there a video on how to install V2? Yeah, we did a webinar on installing. Well, no, I mean install. Yeah, actually, what's the V2 one that has that custom installer, Isaias?
Well, it was beta 13 or 12, something like that. It was an older version of the beta versions, but in any case, if you have AutoHotkey V1 installed, right, just go ahead and install version 2, because it's not going to replace your V1. It's just going to put it in a folder called V2. Let me just share my screen and show exactly what I mean. You don't have to be scared about installing it, because it doesn't replace your original installation. When you go to the AutoHotkey folder, you will see AutoHotkey V1 in there, exactly how you had it. And then you're going to have these folders out here and a shortcut. This shortcut always points to the latest version. So the latest version right now is RC1. So every time you install AutoHotkey version 2, you will have a new folder. You can delete the older ones if you want. You can delete the other ones if you don't need them. And this is the one that you'll always refer. For example, if you want to access V2, it would be C program files, AutoHotkey /V2 / and then AutoHotkey, whatever. So you can have them all both installed at the same time, V1 and V2. And V2, when you install it, it has an option that, for example, here, the UX, let me see which is it, the dashboard, I think it is. Once you finish installing, you will get this little dialog. And this one here that says launch settings is something that you might want to review, because it says it checks automatically whether the script that you're trying to run is V1 or V2. And then you tell it what to do. If it detects that it's a version 1, you can select, oh, I wanted to use the latest V1 version, I don't know, 64-bit or 32-bit. And for V2, which one do you want to use? Well, I want to use the latest, and it's going to be 64-bit. So, or if you don't want that, if you don't want it to be checking which version it is, you can always select, like, always run all the scripts with a specific interpreter, and you choose which one you want, either V1 or V2. So it's up to you. You can have both at the same time. I have it auto detect, and that way I can run V1 and V2 scripts at the same time, and I don't have to worry about it. So for anybody thinking that, you know, I cannot have V2 or whatever, yeah, you can. Is perfectly fine. You can have them both installed at the same time.
So ABD was clarifying he is using AnyDesk and TeamViewer for the remote desktop. So yeah, it's not going to be fun. But what we didn't mention earlier was even though it's often doing image search and mouse click and keystrokes, but tabs can be a good way to navigate around within a program, a reliable way to automate.
Right, yeah.
So instead
sending a tab is one of the most reliable ways, because it is a very specific number of tabs that you have to hit before reaching a specific button, for example. And that number usually doesn't change. So tabbing along is one of the most reliable ways when you're sending keystrokes, right?
Isaiah, show real quickly, just sending a tab and sending 5 tabs, because last week I think it was someone said like they didn't realize you could send the multiple keys strokes or keys. Let me phrase it that way. You know, using a number, right, for indicating how many times.
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. So one of the things that we have here is that you can send, let's make a quick hotkey. So you have send tab. So if I press F1, it would go ahead and send a tab. So if I press F1, it will just behave as sending one tab, right? But what happens is that you could send 10 tabs. You see that? Just by specifying the key that you want to send and how many times you want to send it. This makes it easier because you don't have to write tab 10 times, because you could do this, for example, that's okay. But why would you want to do that? You can just specify that you're going to send a specific key, how many times you want to do it. The same with any key, like, for example, send escape key 10 times. I don't know why you want to do that, but you can. Arrow keys, you know, the up button 10 times. You can do any of those. So whenever you're navigating to different parts of the window, for example, I would say tab 3, hit enter, and then tab 6, because I know that after I hit tab 3 times, I get into a button, hit enter, and that would bring me to a different screen that when I tap 6 times, I'm going to end up in a different location. So I could definitely, I would definitely use this. And just to demonstrate how it looks, let's send test. And if I run this, whenever I press F1, it would hit tab 10 times and then show the text that I put there. So this is what it looks like, a bunch of tabs and the word test. So play around with that. That is, sometimes some people might not know that that is a thing. And actually the most random people, we were talking, Joe, with somebody, and when I put that in the screen, he was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. So it is good to know that you have that available. It saves you a lot of space.
anyone else got any other questions, anything? I was trying to think, Isaiah, what else do we do this week that we could just share? Is there anything that
I could share something that I was doing. I don't know if it is too advanced or anything, but it was a very interesting concept that I was thinking maybe I would mention it on the heroes call, but it is an interesting video anyways. So let me share my screen real quick. This is something that I was developing for somebody that asked a very quick tool. What it does is that it allows you to select an iCalendar file, right? Let's say that I select this file. And then I would decide on a date. I want to use a cutoff date. So the cutoff would be September 1st.
But let me interrupt you just for a second here. For people that don't know, AutoHotkey has an amazing calendar functionality built in.
That's actually one of the things that I was going to talk about, but I was just showing that you have a calendar. I was going to say, hey, did you know that you could add calendar controls on your script? But basically, you select a cutoff date, September 1st of this year, for example. And when I hit save, it would grab this iCalendar file and it would look for all the events that are prior or that end before this date, and it would just delete them. And it would just leave me with the events that are from this date forward. So think about it as a calendar cleaner. I don't want all the events from the past. I just want events from this date forward. And when I hit save, it would ask me, okay, so you're gonna save 35 events. You're gonna be deleting 1951 events. So it automatically counts how many there are and tells you, yeah, you want to do that? Yeah, you see yes, and it would ask you for, well, where do you want to save it? So it's not going to delete the original file, right? So I have a new file that now tells me, hey, 35 events were saved. And basically I could just go to any calendar right now. And I had a test, I think I had a test calendar around. Let me create one.
So for those that don't know, first off, an iCal, that's a calendar, text
file.
Yeah, but the file, it's just a plain text file, structured in a certain way, right? And
yes, I will show it up in a
they're
second.
simple, and at the same time, depending on what you have in the description and whatever, it can look ugly as sin.
It is correct, actually. And it is tricky, very tricky working with it. I'm going to show you something regarding that. But for example, you have this option of importing calendars. And if I select the file that I just exported and select the test calendar and import it, it would tell me, hey, 35 events imported. So my process was, okay, Google can identify this file. And if I go ahead and take a look at the thing, it has to kind of reload it. Oh, there it is. There's a few events down there. There's a few things that I have to, and there are some older events. Any event that was before September 1st is going to be deleted. So prior to that date, let me see if I have the year. So prior, oh, it doesn't show it here. I thought that I would be able to see it, but anything prior to September is going to be deleted. So September 1st is the first. So again, it's just kind of like a way of cleaning up calendars. So let me show you more or less how that file looks like. This is a normal iCalendar file. And there's a section that is kind of like information about the calendar. And then you start having these events, this begin event. Let me make it a little bit bigger. This is an event, right? So this is an event that has a start, end, and then it ends over here. So this section right here is one event, and that's the information about them. But this format is really complex. There's a lot of little things that go into it. Some events, like for example, with the date start and date end, they have some additional information, and you have to know how that thing works. I was really annoyed by the thing, and I'm thinking, how haven't they changed this freaking old format? And it has a size. You will never get anything past certain amount of characters, and it would cut it off there and continue with the next line with the space at the beginning. So the space at the beginning of the line is telling you that everything is concatenated.
And
it's insane.
if I remember right, on all the timestamps you have there, yours are ending in a Z, and that
And
Z
a T and a Z, right?
yeah, and that's indicating the time zone, right?
It's not. That's why I said it's very tricky. It's really. I'm gonna show you. So, yeah. Let me show.
Because I thought it was
no. So you see where the colon is before the column, then they put the time zone. For whatever reason, I do agree with you. I understand that in the international date system, after the Z, you put the time zone. But in V calendars, that's not how it works. It's really annoying.
I'd say I would disagree with that, because I'd say that there's maybe more than one approach to it. Because I know from when I used to do the webinars, the AutoHotkey web, and I'm going from memory, granted, right? But because it's been several years, but I remember, working with it in the other format where I was updating it there. But maybe there's still, because that was the other thing, is there's a lot of different methods that you can use in these.
That's the problem. Yes, that's the problem. So, and that's the reason why a calendar from Google might not be imported into a calendar from another service, because they might use the system differently. In the international date, the international dating system, right? After the Z, you would put the time zone. But for whatever reason, these guys decided, no, we're not going to use the international way. We're going to use our own way. And at this point, I actually tested it. I was looking for it because I was really confused when I saw a time zone at the beginning. So the only thing that I do want to mention about this program is a very interesting concept. When you are parsing this type of files, and let me tell you something about it, the order in which those properties show up is significant. You cannot just organize them however you want. What you want to do is basically treat each event as an entity. So you want to have this whole thing as you want to treat it as a big chunk of data, right? But when you're parsing line by line, you cannot do that. I decided, okay, let me use string split on begin event and try it that way. Not a good idea. But in the end, I just decided, hey, the only thing that I have to do is loop line by line. I'm just looping line by line. And I'm just appending each line into an object. So, well, and this is the key point, into an array specifically. Because if you shove it into an object in AutoHotkey, the objects automatically sort themselves. So say, for example, that you want to create an object that has key value pairs, and the begin event is going to contain this word, and the dstart is going to contain this number. They're going to automatically sort themselves, and you're going to lose the format. That's not going to work. What you want to do is add it into an array, because arrays do not lose the order in which you append stuff to it. And after I added everything into an array later on, when I'm saving, then I go line by line in my data. So I go line by line because it's an array with a lot of lines. And then I'm just appending those lines only for the ones that are valid, because that was my point. If the date, specifically the date end, was before the cutoff date that I gave you, then I would say that it is not a valid item, and I would just not save it into my events push. So in general, whenever you're parsing files and you need to keep the order in which the lines appear, do not use an object. It's not going to work out well for you. It's better to use an array, because the array will continue with the sorting of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that was one of the things that I kind of, it's not that I learned it that time, it's just that I was reminded the hard way about it. Like every time you're saving information, if you want to keep the order, try to use an array, not an object. I think that's the part that I would go with. So I don't know if there's any questions about this thing. I'm sorry?
Or nest it, but yeah. So ABD said in start a new script is I think we'll just demonstrate with the first one here. He says, I use similar sentences in my work, but the dimension of the word must be changed, such as a name or a phone number. If so, is there a way to control the writing cursor to stop in a certain places that I choose? So what I said was, hey, if you're using a hot string, you could have it back up 12 character, like hi, let's say you want to be typing in Bob or Fred or whatever. Hi.
So I would say, so I'm not really understanding. Yeah, so hi.
Space, comma. Nope.
How are you? So space.
Yeah, because we're going to want space, comma, how are you?
Right.
Now do the, no.
Well, so I don't want to delete whatever I just typed.
That's gonna be sent. That's not the trigger.
Okay, so that's what I want. Okay, so what would be the trigger? So hi.
Hey, whatever. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so then I could just put
left. Yeah, and what is that? Maybe 13 characters? I don't know. I'm just guessing.
So I would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So sorry. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. So left 13, right?
Yeah.
There you go. So basically what is going to happen is that I'm going to send the text and it will always also move 13 characters to the left, and it would be blinking where hi is, which means that probably, by the way, because of I did not put the asterisk right here. This asterisk makes it so that I do not have to hit a, so if I type hi, right? If I type hi, it would say, how are you? But it is blinking exactly where I could put the name, right? So I could always do that and it is fairly, stable. It doesn't matter how many times I do it.
Yeah. Now, and I see Jean's here in QAP, because I've done it with him. You can do, it's kind of, I think of it like a mail merge, right? Of using variables or having it where it'll ask you for, points of things that you want to put in when you do the merge. But yeah.
Joe, you just reminded me of the format command.
I thought that was your go-to, and I'm like, no,
don't do that. No, but in general, yeah.
You know what is this here? I'd still say, I'm not against the format command. It's just more complicated at times. This is one where I'd say this is actually a really simple example, right?
Yeah, and especially if you're gonna be typing the same name in several locations, I would do it this way, which again is a very simple. So I have a template. So let's have a template that has hi, and I'm going to put here my name. I wanted to tell you your name is, and I put the name again. So I want to use the name twice. In the other example, what we just did, it would move the caret to the left, but I could only type once. But at this point, I could actually put the same variable twice, and I would use, let's have a hotkey. It's going to have an input box, right? And var, I don't know, name, let's call it name. And then
he also wants to know how I would use more than one. So let's
exactly. This is the perfect example of why I would use a template, because here I would use the number 1 twice, and wherever that shows up is going to be changed automatically. So at this point,
no, you need a 2 is my point.
2 different names?
Well, not necessarily a name. Let's say the day of the week, whatever. It's 2 different variables.
2 different variables. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's make.
I literally meant
your name is and the date is. Here we go. Now I'm going to ask you for your name. If not name, I would return because I want to have a name. If I have a name, I'm going to say format my template. The first one is going to be the name, and the second one is going to be the date. I'm just going to put A now for now, but we will format that in a second. This automatically does the following. When I use the format command on my template, the first variable is always going to be put where the number 1 is. So it's going to be put twice here in the hi, and I wanted to tell you that your name is, and the name again. But number 2 is always going to be replaced with the second parameter. So at this point, if I hit F1, it should ask me for my name. And when I hit OK, I should have, hi, Isaiah. I wanted to tell you your name is Isaiah and the date is, and I have a date. You see that? So the fact that I could use, I asked the name only once, right? But the name was put in my string twice is great, especially when you have more complex templates in which, for example, you have an email template in which certain topic or thing is going to be repeated several times. It's a little bit easier just to have a template like this, and wherever you want to replace something, you just put it on different locations. And then it is easy for you to move this, because now I want to tell you his name is Isaiah, and Isaiah, the date is 2. I just run the script again. And I just moved that. And as soon as I hit OK, my name has moved. So tell you your name is Isaiah and Isaiah, the date is. So again, it's really flexible to do it this way. But that is using the format function to do exactly the same as we did before. It's just a little bit more flexible depending on what you're doing. So right now, this date, I would format it in the way that I want to format it before passing it to it. But that's it.
Yeah,
I hope this is a very simple example.
And I know, especially in the example he's talking about where you have multiple things, you'd probably create a simple GUI, not use an input box, right? So you have
no, of course. Yeah, definitely. So I would have a simple GUI with the things that I want. And when I hit OK, I just use the format command to input all of those things into the template at once. So I don't have to be doing one by one.
Jean, did you want to, do you have an example you can share real quick with UAP with doing it?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Hi,
So,
everybody.
Hey, Jean. QAP is quick access pop-up. Jean's the author of it. It's written in AutoHotkey, but you don't have to know AutoHotkey to use it. The cool thing, though, it has some more advanced things that you can do, like little macros within them, to do stuff like this. So it's really a power user tool, right, Jean? Isn't that how you kind of sell it, promote it?
Excuse me. Yeah, just getting back to the right screen. Yeah, did I share my screen? Yes, I think you see it. Yes, it's a power user tool. I added a lot of features following suggestions from users that were themselves power users, so they had quite advanced ideas. But the basics is easy, so it's easy to start using it. But you can always learn more feature from it because there's a lot of deep in the feature you can find in it. So let's take just the example of creating a snippet, so something like a hot string that would include questions to the user or to yourself if you design it for yourself. So I had a favorite of type snippet here. I give it a name, hello. So the content will be hello, and then, for example, you can use placeholders inside your snippet. Sorry, I cannot increase the size of this window. So there's a placeholder that is called input column. I'll have to refer to my documentation. We have what?
We have a video we did on it, which is why I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Let me just go to placeholders. There are so many features, I don't know all them by memory. So there's the input from user. So this page here describes all the type of placeholders that you can create. They can be based on the content of the clipboard, on the location of the file you selected, or the active window. But there's here input from the user. So you put input column and then the question to ask the user. So, for example, name, and later on, I can reuse this variable name here. Like this. And let's open Notepad. So the question that is asked here becomes the name of a user variable, which is something else in quick access pop-up where you can create a list of values that will be like variables, so that you can name and then use in your snippets or in your favorite path locations, things like that. So let's save it. And in my menu that I pop up with the default button, which is the middle mouse button, I have this hello snippet here. And what it does, it asks me the question. And then I press OK, and it will type. It didn't. This is a beta release that I'm testing, so it should work. But yeah, was something wrong here.
I put the link to the video in the Zoom.
Yeah, and I'll just check with the official release, not the beta test release that I have currently. But what it does is, and you can paste it by using the menus like what I've shown, or you can create a shortcut, so a hotkey that will trigger your snippet, or a hot string, as you would do with AutoHotkey. So if I put hello here, it will become the trigger that will launch this hotkey. So I'll just leave it as it is. I'll just check what's wrong, and if we have time, I'll come back with the explanation of this live bug, as it always happens, as you know.
Todd was asking with the format command if you could use, if you could pull information to put in the variables from an Excel workbook, and I'm like, absolutely. I actually, in the webinar, and I'm trying to remember what it was actually titled, but we did Outlook and Excel. I mean, that's what I was doing in that, customizing emails to people, pulling in pieces of information from the Excel worksheet to write very pretty, nice sales emails for people, or whatever you want, right? But yeah, it's very easy to do, because Excel has a COM object that allows you very specific information. But then you wouldn't necessarily need the format command. You could use it, don't get me wrong, but there's other ways you could build that template. It just depends. It's not the format command is my point. It's
exactly. There are different tools that you can use, and if you are using the COM object, then yeah, just go with that. It's a little bit, simpler to use, because the format command is extremely flexible, and that's the problem. When something has so much flexibility, then it has too many options, and you will have to know what you're doing. But with the COM objects, they're designed specifically for certain actions, and it would allow you to write very simple code that would take the stuff and put it wherever you want. So I would just look through this stuff, through the data.
Someone just used the discount code to buy the intermediate AutoHotkey course. So awesome.
Awesome.
You get that URL over my head, save 40% on everything.
Just a second, if you wish, I will just show that it works. Okay. So when I select hello here, and I say Joe, so it will paste the content. It did before I share my screen. Is it? Is it Zoom that is playing me a trick?
So Jean, I think you weren't here when we were talking about it. Somebody was talking about remotely using AutoHotkey on a remote computer, and we were mentioning how when you're doing stuff in remote compute, whatever, that Zoom or whatever tools they
might interfere.
Yeah, they interfere, and it's funny that this actually happened, because
that's exactly what we were talking about, right?
So I'm running it right now, and I can just show you the result. No, it didn't work.
No.
Hi, Joe. And my name is, I just made a mistake in the way I created the user variable here. But yeah, that's Zoom playing.
Bunch of little tricks, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, if nobody else has any other questions, let me remind, we mentioned that AutoHotkey has these calendar options, right? And we didn't really talk about it. So I just wanted to show you real quick. There is this one option here, or control that you can add to your GUIs called month cal, right? So this guy, let me show it in V1. So GUI add month cal, and it is a little bit tricky because show this this is what it looks like, but it allows you to create more rows and columns, right? And the way how it creates rows is a little bit, not that intuitive. So let me go ahead and talk about that one. If you want to add rows, just add how many rows you want to add. That's very simple. It's intuitive. It's normal. Here we go. Now, if you try the same with the width, you want to go to the right side, it's going to be a little bit surprising because that creates something that makes no sense. So you have to be careful of this one. This one works negative. You have to use the negative. So you have to use -2 for whatever reason. And what it does is that it adds a new column to the side. So if you're trying to add more columns in a calendar, you would have to use the negative value. I don't know why, actually. I'm not sure exactly why that is. But if you want to add rows, it's normal. That one is normal. So allow me just 1 second. That's what it looks like if you have, a 2x2 calendar. And awesome, you can just jump between dates fairly easy with this. So, it's a good thing to know. Allow me just 1 second, guys. Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, ABD, just the AutoHotkey Hero group. Actually there's several people here that are here. We're here and we do 2 more hours after this call. It's nice because we don't stream it to YouTube. So if you do have private stuff, we don't have to worry about it being shared with everybody. It's actually they are on YouTube, they're unlisted, so nobody can find them. But people can watch them. If you can't attend the meeting, you can watch them later. But yeah, it's and we have a call tomorrow, and we're having a webinar today on, what was it, 9 different
Sorry
ways
about that.
to web scrape with AutoHotkey. Hey, Hamada. Calendar. Is it possible to select the calendar week? I think I've seen something like that, but
yeah, you can definitely select a specific. Yeah, there's 2 things that you can do with it. Like you can either select a specific date that would be pre-selected, and you could also select a range of dates as well.
I thought you're understanding what he said was to display started on a certain week. Is that what you're saying?
Right. That's what I'm thinking he's referring to.
I thought he meant to select to have it in a month thing and select a week.
Which you can. So you have it in a month, but you can select a specific week on that month if you want. So you could definitely select a range like this, and when you show, it will go to that date and it will have those dates pre-selected. Right. So you can definitely pre-select something, and you can force it to be selected, and you can actually multi-select in here. So you can definitely select range like this, because when you get the data from the calendar, it comes in that same format. You will get 1 date for the beginning, 1 date to the end, and you can actually see what the range of dates was. So definitely you can select dates. You can choose a specific date to be selected first. You can limit the calendar as well.
He said the week of the year is what.
Oh, yes, as well. So one of the things that you say here, the week numbers, you just specify the number 4 in the options. So you can say this. And now once you run it, you will see on the left side the week of the year. So that's another thing that you can definitely see. If we go further in the year, you will see, 41, and here we go to the 45th.
Oh, crap, we're out of time. Real quickly, Hamada asked about toggling, hiding, showing the Wi-Fi icon. He said taskbar, but he meant system tray. Can you show real quickly, Zayas? I don't know if this is exactly going to work for him, but you know how you just drag it?
Drag and drop it. Yeah, you just drag and drop it somewhere. like that, you can do that. And now that icon is not going to show up. And even if you restart the computer, it's not going to show up.
And that's not tied to the Wi-Fi. That's any icon,
Right.
right?
It's any icon that shows up in here.
Very handy to be able to pull it out of that. I'd also say consider having your taskbar on the side instead, and you can really get down to where you have it's much tighter of a space.
You can show that how it looks on your computer, because it actually gives you way more options, right?
Yeah, let me real quickly here jump. So on my screen, these are shortcuts to launch programs. Here are what's running. Here are shortcuts to folders that I access all the time. This is my system tray, right? So I can see a lot more in here. I get rid of the clock because I put my button clock up here. So I always have the clock, visible. But and then I can see other stuff. But yeah, it's very convenient because I can see a lot more, and it's pretty awesome. All right, well, we're out of time. Thank you, everyone. Consider using that Black Friday code to join the Hero Group or purchase the course or whatever. But thank you and see you next week. Have a great day. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Bye.